Hello and welcome to the brand new podcast series, The Next Paradigm of Outsourcing by Next Time, wherein we bring you insights on outsourcing from experts across various industries. The subject we'll cover in today's episode is addressing IT-OT convergence. Modern organizations grapple with these two worlds, IT, which is the information technology, and OT, which is the operational technology. Advances in technologies such as the IoT and big data analytics are systematically allowing the two universes of IT and OT to converge. When implemented properly, IT-OT convergence can merge business processes, insights, and controls into a single uniform environment. However, with this rapidly modernizing world comes certain unprecedented risk. In this episode today of our podcast series, we will discuss the benefits and risk attached to the convergence of IT-OT, the solutions to such concerns, and many more such topics. To talk about this further, we have Mr. Andre Shori with us. Hi, Andre.
Hi, it's a great pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much for inviting me on to the podcast.
Likewise, Andre. And just to introduce Andre is the Regional Chief Information Security Officer at Schneider Electric, where he's responsible for leading, animating, and implementing the IT and OT cybersecurity programs for the entire APAC region. With over 3 decades of professional experience, a SANS Master of Science in Information Security Management, and 18 major cybersecurity certification, Andre has made it his daily mission for the last 3 years to address Schneider Electric's cybersecurity posture for his regional ecosystem of customers, partners, and employees. He also serves as an executive board member of the Singapore chapter for International Information System Security Certification Consortium and as Vice President of the Association of Information Security Professionals. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Andrew, today. And with your go-ahead, I'll be asking you a couple of questions on the topic.
Yeah, please. Looking forward to it.
So, IT-OT convergence is widely talked about. What is its foundation, Andre, and how do you see this beneficial to scaling up organizations? What's your take on that?
So, IT and OT convergence actually has been around for quite a while, since before 2015, right? But I think the term itself, IT-OT convergence, really came to prominence when it was popularized by Carl Schwab, the WF, the World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman back in 2015. It's really about increasing interconnectivity and smart automation, right? So in this converging world, your IT and OT systems will talk to each other, increasingly talk to each other, and you will have a lot more OT, or you'll find a lot more OT in your environments, IT environments as well. For example, in smart buildings, energy efficient smart buildings today, you'll notice a lot more sensors, motion sensors, light sensors, temperature sensors, things like that distributed around your building in order to give your building management system the sensors or intelligence it needs in order to make smart decisions on how to be energy efficient in your building, right? So you're going to see all these smart systems distributed throughout your building in the same rooms as, say, your HR and finance systems and infrastructure and colleagues. So what are the benefits? Why do this, right? I think increased productivity, it enables increased productivity. You get things like just-in-time manufacturing. You definitely are going to have improvements in terms of your quality control and quality assurance, better insights into your inventory. Your processes are going to get smarter and more automated, right? So we're going to see a lot more automation, just to name a couple of advantages. In short, to sum it up, I think that the real benefit there, the major significant benefit for me is really that it helps people and companies make more informed, data-driven decisions, right? So essentially, you're going to be getting a lot more better intelligence about your operations, which on the OT side, specifically, it's going to help plant managers and system maintenance engineers make better decisions. Therefore, that's how you're going to see a lot more value to your enterprise.
Despite the promise of higher stakeholder returns from lower operating costs, higher efficiency, and synergies, there are still inherent risks that can impact the realization of benefits from IT-OT convergence. So according to you, Andre, what are the implications of poorly managing the integration of these systems? How would you analyze and treat these risks? What's your take?
So I can speak to it from a cybersecurity perspective or a security perspective, right? I think it's important for all of us to remember that OT systems are technologies with direct impact to the physical world, right? So contrast that with IT systems where you have impact to the the virtual world or data, right? That's where you see a lot of the impact. But for OT systems, the impact is primarily in the physical world. It's a physical impact, right? When we talk about automation, for example, what we mean is that there's a computer controlling machines, right? So with Convergence, you're going to see a lot more computers having more control over machines. And keep in mind that computers have been vulnerable to cyber attacks since the 1970s, right? Since they were invented. I think that's just gone hand in hand. In industrial environments, it's also important to remember that the top priority is always going to be safety, right? Industrial control systems or industrial environments, smart factories, wherever it is, it's always about safety. Availability is a very close second, but the number one priority has to be safety, because the impact is always going to be physical. So I think what there's a gap. So what is still not well understood and planned for in many environments today, or OT environments today, are electronic attacks stemming from threat actors with nefarious plans, right? And there's many examples of such attacks. So in 2014, for example, a German steel mill was attacked. In 2019, the Triconnect safety system for an oil refinery, a major oil refinery, was attacked as well and compromised. Thankfully, that was mitigated in time. But that attack actually impacted Schneider systems, or Schneider produced safety systems. Last year, the Port of London was hit with an attack that had physical implications. Think about Ukraine's power grid, which has been repeatedly under attack as part of the conflict that's going on in Eastern Europe today, right? Other examples, there was an oil tanking group last year that was hit, and they were forced to reroute their oil, right? Now, I'm not saying that every single one of these attacks was targeted at OT environments. In fact, in a way, it's interesting to note that many of these attacks are kind of peripheral, right? Or the impact was not specifically targeted at OT environments. A lot of these attacks, for example, are ransomware, and the Colonial Pipeline was a ransomware attack that resulted in oil shortage or a major outage in the U.S. last year. So many of these attacks are not specifically targeted at OT systems, but there is a disturbing trend. There are a growing number of attacks which are really actually specifically crafted for OT environments. I think it's important to also consider that when we talk about industrial environments, right, we're also talking about critical infrastructure for many countries. So your energy supply, your clean water systems, your traffic systems, the shipping logistics, how you move your goods and your goods around the country, your airports, your food packaging. Australia is considered food packaging to be critical infrastructure as well, because if you don't have access to clean water and clean food and clean air, that's pretty detrimental. So if we don't secure these systems, then malicious parties can cause catastrophic failures in these environments, which obviously have massive detrimental impact to society. And I think that we need to keep in mind that you have to approach OT environments differently, right? You can't apply traditional IT defenses, because it's a physical environment, right? I mean, that's like putting a car bumper in an airplane. It works well for vehicles in general, but airplanes have different risks compared to cars. OT environments, as I said, they prioritize safety and availability. So I think another way to think about it is your HR system, if it's compromised, you're going to have data loss, but it's not likely to kill you. But machines in the OT environment might if somebody turns off their safety control systems.
What standards of cybersecurity should govern the implementation of IT and OT convergence Android? So there's several standards. I won't say there's lots. There's actually just a handful, but there's several standards and frameworks out there, including the famous IEC 62443. Right. But my favorite current go-to one is the U.S. government agency is called CISA. They have guidelines they publish on how to secure industrial control systems and also measure cybersecurity performance goals. So that's why I like this one, because not only does it tell you what you need to do in order to secure an ICS environment, but it also gives you metrics, and that's really, really useful. I don't think there's any particular framework where I would say that governs your cybersecurity program, right? Because these are all just frameworks and guidelines and a way for you to have like a uniform language that everyone speaks and orients themselves around. But really, the governance of a cybersecurity program can never shift away from the owner of the environment. But
But again, my favorite one today is still the CISO one, because I like that it addresses, and it also addresses both the OT and the IT systems as well, and how they talk to each other. So that's why I really like that one.
Andre, do you envision OT capability being handled as a managed services? And does India have the potential to be led by example in that space? What's your take?
I think it's possible. Okay, it's definitely possible, but given the risk, I think any service provider has to have sufficient knowledge about the OT environment that they've been asked to protect. They have to have a deep level of knowledge over it, and they have to have a high level of control over how these systems are designed, right? Because every OT environment is configured differently. It's not a one size fits all. If you think about a manufacturing plant, every production line has a different purpose. It's designed a little bit differently, and so you need to have, if you're going to protect something, you need to have a deep understanding of exactly what that environment, what its purpose is, and what it's supposed to do, right? And how is it configured, and where are the safety systems? But there are some underlying baselines, right? Such as those outlined in the U.S. government guidelines I mentioned earlier, and 62443 as well. I mean, those will give you a good head start, right? As I said, those are great frameworks to orient yourselves around, and everyone speak the common language and have common goals and philosophies and ideals. But nothing's going to beat that in-depth knowledge of your environment. So be sure that you, as the owner, fully understand and are instrumental in the designs of your security program. And if you're going to outsource any of that, if you're going to delegate your security operations to someone else, make sure that they understand it as well. Keep in mind, you can delegate away the responsibility, or rather the operation of it, but you can never delegate away your responsibility as the owner of those systems. The risk is still yours, so you have to manage that risk. But I think, like you mentioned, India. I think India, like any other country out there, you have the same opportunities to be a world leader in the OT cybersecurity space. I love India because you are already a highly technical and capable workforce as a nation, right? And you're already intimately familiar with outsourcing models, because there's been a long history of outsourcing in India. I could see India becoming a focal point for, say, an OT-oriented security operations center, for example. And I also recognize there's a lot of manufacturing that takes place in India as well. So there's lots of people that have a deep understanding. They have the technical capability and the expertise to make sense of an OT environment, right? So I believe that it's a short hop to really develop some strong OT cybersecurity expertise in India itself. But India still has a little bit of catching up to do. Like, for example, one gap I see is that in the regulatory space, you currently today don't really have a strong critical infrastructure act per se, right? Because it's still kind of lumped together with your Information Technology Act from many, many decades ago. And I think that there needs to be a focus in terms of modernization, particularly via segmentation into, you split the OT and IT topics apart, and then work with industry partners like Schneider Electric, like manufacturing plant owners and site owners, people, practitioners, to help craft out regulations specific to OT. Right, that's going to bring OT and CIOs, operators, critical infrastructure operators' attention to the right place. So the Indian government still needs to do a little bit of work in that space. I know there's a revised draft that's now up in Parliament in terms of revising the Digital Act. But is it OT focused? Not really. I think that maybe India would benefit from that, and that would definitely help. I think I would feel more comfortable if I was going to outsource, more of my, say, OT cyber operations to India if I knew that was a heavily regulated environment and it had the right level of people, process, and technologies out there.
We'd like to hear your views on the sustenance and growth factors of IT and OT convergence.
I think people really need to accept that it's here to stay. OT-IT convergence you can't put the genie back into the bottle. There's just too many well-known and documented advantages in Industry 4.0. And you just have to accept that your IT and OT environments are going to be talking to each other a lot more in the future, right? But we have to make sure that we're being responsible, of course, and we're proceeding in a safe and secure manner. But you just have to accept the reality is that, the myth of the air gap and having your IT and OT environments completely segmented from each other, they're not segmented today. They do talk to each other because that's just part of your business strategy, and that's just part of modernization and then competitive advantage that your enterprise needs to have in order to stay relevant. So, I think security practitioners just have to accept that. We also need to prepare for this better. For example, one thing that we can do is we need to teach our engineers and engineers of both IT and OT something called security design engineering, right? So security design engineering, the nexus of it, the crutch of it is in everything that you design and everything that you engineer, you must incorporate security, right? And I'm talking both physical security as well as technological security, right? Virtual security or IT or OT security, right? Data security, but the virtual side. So even if you're designing a bridge, you have to think about, nowadays there's lots of sensors built into that bridge that monitor things on that bridge. You need to start thinking about building security and not just in terms of keeping people away from your control rooms and things like that by locking your doors, but you also need to make sure that they can't break in through Wi-Fi, through virtual means, right? So all that has to be engineered in from day one in order to make it sustainable and maintainable, because OT environments, they last for decades. You need to build it in from day one. Trying to retroactively implement it later on is very, very tricky and very difficult. I also think that my advice to fellow CISOs and practitioners out there, all of us are slowly coming to that realization, but for those that haven't caught up yet, wake up to the fact that OT environments are now in scope. Even if you're running a software company, right, the building you're sitting in, that's going to have some aspect of OT in there, right? So it's going to be in scope for you. I mean, all our computers run on energy and electricity, so that's already in scope for us. Has always been for a long time, but we need to take more active management and addressing security concerns related to the operations of our environments. You need to incorporate OT as part of your cybersecurity program. Right, either build up a second pillar, or just have it under the same umbrella and just start to train yourself on OT. Right, understand OT related risks, build up the OT capabilities within your cybersecurity teams, and prepare. The OT flood, it's coming, guys. It's coming, and it's already raining today. So be ready.
Thank you, Andre, for a very informative conversation on addressing IT-OT convergence. I'm sure that all our listeners must have benefited from these insights. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. If you have any questions or have any suggestions for future topics, please write to us at thinknext@nextime.com. Thank you, everybody. You have a great day ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.